Charging with B&B. I am Bear,
And I am Brian.
one-eyed Brian,
Back with more eyes than last week.
which is definitely an improvement. You are looking much better. I'm glad to see that you're on the mend.
Thank you, thank you. It feels less terrible all the time.
Yeah, that's good. Stop poking yourself in the eye, and it will continue to feel less terrible.
All right, I'll do that. We don't have anything to cover this week, do we?
Now we're going to talk about your eye for the next hour. The eye, the Lord of the Rings eye.
The all-seeing eye of Sauron. Hey, did you hear the world's first solar electric car, Lightyear Zero, has entered production?
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. Reading about it, they're going to be making apparently one per week. No idea how much these cars are going to cost. It's got some specs, and the specs actually weren't that bad. It's got a relatively small battery compared to a lot of the batteries that are out there now, and not bad a range. But that's probably WLTP range, isn't it?
Most definitely is. But 21 miles, that's fine. Average commute is 21 miles, so it's, and it's designed for the European market where the distances traveled are expected to be smaller. It does have the lack of side mirrors, which was approved in 2020 for the European market. Really improves the drag. And yeah, it's gonna, at one a week, it's a start.
Oh yeah. I mean, at least they're not getting their expectations and saying that they're going to do 20,000 a year in their first year.
Well, yeah, this isn't Faraday Future.
Yeah, or Lucid Motors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Lucid is making cars. We might
Yeah.
have something about them later.
Oh, we might. It's always possible.
What's up with Honda?
But you never know. Honda is Honda's doing weird stuff again.
Yeah.
They see a future for hydrogen fuel cell tech, where most do
Something.
not.
Yeah, and it's something they don't even have particular expertise in, and it's something that is not easy to be an expert at.
But they are giving it a go, and they are going to be trying to make a thing called calling the Clarity fuel cell, and they're going to be making that in Ohio in 2024, and it's going to be some sort of hybrid fuel cell, so that it will be running off the fuel cell and charging the battery, which is kind of interesting. It all sounds kind of good, except for the one missing thing, the
Which,
piece of the puzzle.
which is
What do you think it is?
the hydrogen fueling stations that essentially don't exist.
Yeah, that's well. There's 50 some odd of them in California, but that's still not quite enough. That has not taken off like people thought it would be. But this could be a big plus for, let's say, a company like Nikola and TC Energy that are working on hydrogen stations that will be around the country, whether or not they could actually work for these cars. If they could, hey, that could be something.
Well, and if hydrogen infrastructure is going to be built out, it needs to be built out everywhere. I think this is a wrong approach, but at least they're the only ones doing it.
Are they now?
Toyota unveils hydrogen-powered pickup and SUV.
I like that.
Toyota is high on hydrogen. Japanese
Oh,
automaker sees a bright future with the fuel as an alternative to battery power. All right, I thought we tried this. Okay. That's fun. Toyota UK operation has swapped the Mirai's 182 horsepower powertrain into a pickup.
that's crazy speed. You're going to get some crazy speed and power out of that.
Yeah, if you get rear-ended trying to merge onto the highway.
Oh, come on. Why? Why do you say
No,
that?
you're right. You know what? To be fair, 182 horsepower was not bad that long ago. It is less than my minivan, but
But how is that after it's converted to electrical power to electrical motors? Because
I
182 horsepower on electric motor seems to be a lot better than it is on a gas-powered motor.
that's true. You do have the torque, and you don't really need the high end to get you from 100 to 110 miles an hour.
So I'll tell you, I've got a couple cars that can do that pretty good.
Yeah.
The electric is fun.
Who is this? Notice that I am a little under the weather. It is just a cold, I am quite confident, but I was on an aeroplane huffing other people's sickness for an extended period of time, and that is not great. uh, Lisa points out that Jeff says yawn about hydrogen. Yeah, not great.
Yeah, well, we'll see how this goes because I think it could have a place in long haul at the very least. We've got a couple of aerospace companies that do airplanes, and they're
Yeah,
getting into the hydrogen. And we could find a place for this. It may not be in the average everyday commuter car, but there is going to be a place. And I think in the long term, it's going to be easier to create electricity than it is to create hydrogen. So I definitely think electricity for the shorter range vehicles, hydrogen may be the way to go. Just like there's two different types of fuels for diesels and passenger cars. You've
yeah,
got an application for it.
yeah. And there are some consumer diesel vehicles, but for the most part, yeah. Do you know that a company called Monroe EV is making a rig that looks like a Tesla Cybertruck and Ineos Grenadier's love child?
Yeah, I don't even know what the Ineos Grenadier's love child or the Grenadier itself. I guess this is the love child.
The
Actually, looks like.
Grenadier is a armored vehicle for consumers. It's a vanity armored vehicle. You'll see it in like Fast and Furious movies because it looks more badass than a normal armored vehicle because it's not. But it's yeah, perfectly ridiculous. Oof, yeah.
Hey, just for
You
the record, even though I like cars and stuff, I don't watch Fast and Furious.
oh oh you're missing out
I don't
on
really know if I am.
family. So this comes with up to 375 horsepower.
Motors, so more than one.
No, it's a 295 and a 375 horsepower motor.
Oh, single
It's a
motor.
choice. Yeah. So this is going to get you from 0 to 60.
Yeah. Um, Something like this shouldn't it be all-wheel drive? Is this all-wheel drive?
Yeah, yeah. It's targeting 190 miles of range under the WLTP test.
So
So, no,
50.
it's actually saying 4.9 seconds on the 0 to 62. So,
Okay, Model
it's
Y.
quick. Oh, yeah, it's quick. It's quick.
Yeah.
But, we'll see if they build any. Yeah.
Okay.
Fine.
Well,
Fine.
yeah, it's interesting,
Yeah.
but it's better if we move on because we have a buttload of articles today.
A real glut. A real wealth of stories. Do you know VinFast, Vietnam's only domestic automaker, has announced plans to go public in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think that they'll it's going to be like one of those, and then people are going to realize what they are, and they're going to go.
Well, what do you think they are?
They are an electric EV maker from Vietnam that likes to lease the battery in the car, and I just still don't think that's going to fly in the U.S. of A.
So I got to talk with them in San Diego. So VinFast is a very big company in Vietnam. They're not a startup. They're just newer to EVs. They have big factories there.
Okay.
And when I said the lease thing, that's not really going to fly here, is it? And he said it's optional. You don't have to lease the battery. And if you do, it'll be, you could upgrade it. You could upgrade it just for trips. And if the battery ever has problems, you just swap it out. Or you can buy the battery. Now, how it's going to work with a mix and match market remains to be seen, but we'll see.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I looked at it and I looked at the pricing of it when they first said that they're going to sell the cars, and you're talking about like if you don't want to lease it, you're talking like another $20,000.
It's a
It's
lot.
yeah, it's pretty substantial to just buy the battery, and you get out of the range of like, oh, this is a good deal, you know, oh, only $40,000 for this car that gets this range. Oh, okay, that's not so bad. Oh, but I don't own the battery and I got to pay them $200 a month for it. Ooh, I don't know. Okay, well, what if I just want to buy it? And you're like, Oh, now it's 65, 70, $85,000. They've got some interesting vehicles. I'm not going to say anything bad about that, except for this car looks like every single crossover utility vehicle I've ever seen.
Yeah, it does for sure.
Yeah. But
Yeah. And the problem is you can make cheap cars or you can make good cars. And once you make good cars, they cost the same. So BYD's full quality export grade vehicles are barely cheaper than the competition. You'd think they'd be way cheaper. And they're not even hardly making money, if at all.
mhm,
So once you get the quality there, the specs there, the styling and the comfort, it costs the same no matter where you make it.
that's true,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sort of. So
But
Lexus has
yeah,
gone and did something weird. I'm
yeah.
just not sure what they're thinking. Are you a fan of this? Lexus is going to be putting a manual transmission for EVs into possibly one or two of their near future vehicles, which I didn't even know that they're going to make an EV because I didn't think Toyota believed in that.
Yeah, obviously, it's not connected to a clutch because Lexus's future EV won't have such a thing.
But it will have a clutch pedal.
Yeah, it's a toy.
Yeah, and
Yeah, yeah.
you can actually stall the vehicle out if you don't do it correctly, which sounds really unsafe.
No, that doesn't sound good at all.
Doesn't that sound like some sort of like a safety issue? Like if you were to hit your radio button and your car stalled, when NHTSA would be like, okay, we've got a safety recall.
Yeah.
Why
If I
put in
for
a pedal that you
yeah,
can screw up and stall the vehicle?
if I forget to hit the shift button, is it going to overheat and blow my motor even though it's only at half the red line?
Do you think there's a warning light that comes up that says, "Warning, your fake clutch has needs replaced because it's not really there"?
I
Maybe you
don't
could.
know, dude. I don't know
I
what they're thinking.
Yeah, and I don't know how much efficiency there is in having more than one gear on an electric motor. If you got an electric motor that's running at 5,000 RPM, is there much different than it running at 10,000? And if so, why isn't everyone doing it besides Porsche and I think Audi? Those are, I think, the two companies that have two-speed transmissions in their EVs.
Well, it adds weight and complexity, and in
Yes.
order to make it strong enough to withstand the torque, it would have to be pretty beefy.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just I have my head scratching. If it really makes sense to have a transmission in an EV, why not go and have a 10-speed transmission and get all that crazy torque
Yeah.
and run the thing at 2,000 RPM instead of 20,000 RPM that I know that I think some of these motors doesn't the Plaid run at like 20,000 RPM?
Something ridiculous like that. They
Yeah.
could have Nissan put in a CVT. Those are popular.
Oh my goodness, that's funny that you say that because that's the reason I won't buy a Nissan for my Toro fleet is because of those CVT transmissions in the Nissans. They're
They're
horrible.
dogs. They're dogs. I've got one. It's not good. It has always been an issue. Good news for Polestar owners. You can
Sort
now
of good news.
download some horsepower.
Yes, you can. You can get an additional 68 horsepower and a whopping 15 pounds of torque to any dual motor Polestar 2 EV. Hey, I got one of those for a mere 1195, and when I say 1195, I mean $1,195. You can get the upgrade. And Polestar took a shot at Mercedes and said, "This is a one-time fee, and you can have this value without the hassle of a subscription."
Yeah, because as we discussed, what was it last week, I think, or the week before, Mercedes is offering a similar thing as a subscription, but with quite a bit more than a 68 horsepower jump, as I recall. So it
Yes.
was, but, and Tesla did have the acceleration boost for certain Models 3. So
Why
I'm
the Y
certain.
had it? $2,000 takes about a half a second off your 0 to 60.
One-time updates, I am not as opposed to as subscriptions. I think subscriptions are the devil and need to go away. But
I'm totally okay with the upgrade thing. It's if you go into a new car dealership and you look at like new cars, they'll have like an upgraded exhaust that will give you 16 more horsepower and it's $5,000. They'll have things like that on the cars available to get you the tiniest bit of upgrade for five, six, $7,000. And people buy it all the time. So for $2,000 on the Tesla, 1195 for the Polestar, one-time cost, you're upgrading your car. I mean, granted, there's this weird feeling of, well, it's already there. All you're doing is flipping a switch. Kind of,
Mm-hmm.
kind of weird, but I don't want to pay monthly for something like that.
No. Nope. Try before you buy. Wouldn't that be neat? Car rental market could be a launch pad for EV adoption. You know, we should have gotten an expert on Turo fleets to help us discuss this.
Yeah, let's pretend like I am one, and I didn't just sleep in a Holiday Inn Express last night. I've had multiple people rent the Hyundai, the Polestar, and the Model Y, and literally say to me, "I am testing this car because I want to buy it." And they'll rent it for a couple of days, and they'll drive it around. They'll come back like, "This is great." And then I tell them why the Hyundai sucks, and then tell them to get something else because it does. Um, but yeah, people do that all the time. It's not just in Australia with Hertz, which is what this article is about. We get people all the time renting the cars just to see how they work, just to kind of like get their foot in the water and see how an EV works, or how the Hyundai, whether the Hyundai would be better than the Polestar. So
Well, and I think there's a lot you can't get from a test drive. The experience of charging, the experience of how it fits at home,
mhm,
all that.
yes. Well, I like I said, it's literally people are just renting it for that purpose, and they'll go on a drive, and they may have to charge once or twice. They'll ask me about it. I'll explain to them, this is what you got to do. Don't screw it up. Don't go to a Tesla charger with the Hyundai. It's not going to work. But inevitably, it happens. Uh,
Inevitably, it does.
yes.
So I remember we put Ford in our titles today. We haven't even talked about Ford.
Oh, we just put in there as clickbait.
Oh, I see.
We got nothing.
Well, I've got one. 150,000th Mach-E rolls off the line as Ford is hoping to make 2 million annually by 2026.
I think that's a pretty large goal right now.
Yeah.
Um, they can do it. And we've got a couple of the Ford articles, and we're going to talk about the bad part of this. And but this is good, 150,000. I know that's what Tesla made in the last 2 months in the United States. I realize that, but this is also their what year and a half into this now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not bad.
It's
That's
not
not
bad.
bad.
And they know how to make them, and they know what their obstacles are. The question is if they can overcome them. But that's a question only they can answer.
Yes, and they are moving along. They are in the number two spot in EVs behind Tesla in the United States. There's obviously a wide gap because Tesla's been doing this for quite a while, and we just talked about the sales numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Ford reported sales of 54,000 through November. Yeah, that's that's tough. But
that
again,
it,
yeah. But again, they've
it,
got a path and all that.
they do, and but
What are their obstacles? What are they
their
facing?
obstacles. Well, on their path, they're going to run into the company called Consumer Reports,
Mm-hmm.
who's going to try and drive them off the path.
Mm-hmm.
As Consumer Reports now finds that the Mach-E is not reliable enough to get the Consumer Reports stamp of approval. Now, this could mean two things. One, there's actually some serious flaws, or Ford didn't give Consumer Reports the kickback money that they're supposed to.
So,
So,
Consumer Reports is largely funded and operated by the Ford Foundation. The director of Consumer Reports is the former director of the Ford Foundation. Ford Foundation is their largest donor. So, for them to retract something like this is a big deal. So, yeah, they gave a reliability award to a first generation car. That's a bad idea. There
that
are
is
too many unknowns.
absolutely a bad idea. It doesn't make sense. How do you judge reliability on the first year of a car?
Yeah. Well, JD Power always likes to give out their initial quality awards. And I'm telling you, I don't care about initial quality. I want to know my 3 to 5 year quality.
I understand that. You got to remember, some people never get to that third year.
Yeah, well, that's what they should call the award. Is the only a year and a half quality award.
All right, all right. So Ford, well, Ford has some other troubles. The Ford Lightning is a winter disaster you may want to avoid. Apparently, a YouTube channel, what the hell was their name? I've watched them numerous times before. I
Which
lost
one
their
do you
name.
mean? That did this?
Yes.
Hoovy?
Oh yeah.
Hoovy?
Hoovies Garage. Thank you. Um, they took their F-150 out in just barely freezing temperatures and found that it got half the range of what it claimed, which is very similar to towing in the summertime with an EV. Good thing they weren't towing, or maybe they were
Wow.
and they didn't tell us. But I've got a little side story. That Mach-E that we picked up a week and a half ago, supposed to have range of around 250 miles. When we picked it up, it said 222 miles. It was charged to 100%. It was also about in the low 50s. It was a early morning. It was in the low 50s to 222. And I was just like, I asked the salesperson about it. She blew smoke at me. I knew she blew smoke at me, so I wasn't going to talk to her about it. The next day, I charged up, and it got up to like 235. When I looked, wasn't really thinking about the time of day, and I don't know what it was. A couple days later, I charged up to 244. It's like, all right, maybe this battery's acclimating to its very existence or something. So I haven't seen that in other cars. Haven't seen that in the Polestar, the Hyundai, and any of the Teslas. And then the other day I get into it, and it's early morning. It's 6:30 in the morning, and it's in the 40s, and it's shivering. It goes, I only got 219 for you now. It's all related to the temperature. The range on it was directly related to the outside temperature, and as best I can tell, and it's got pretty good energy display where I only drove it like 4 or 5 miles to take my daughter to school, and it said that most of my energy went towards the heating, towards the out. Actually, it went towards outside climate was affecting it.
What's the stated range?
250 ish.
That's that's
So
concerning.
yeah, so that is definitely concerning, and it supports what happened with this F-150. It got down to 30 degrees, and they lost half their range. Now, in the next couple of weeks, we should have a couple of overnight freezes here in Arizona. We usually get a couple of them a year. I'm going to go out. I'm going to check that car, and it should be fully charged. But if it says it's at 150 or 125, well, hold on a second, because that can't be right for 30 degrees, because you're talking people in much colder climates than me.
Sure.
So
That's ridiculous.
it is. I hope that doesn't continue that way. I hope that there's some sort of fix for that. I know when Sandy Monroe took apart a Mach-E, he found some pretty horrible uh, piping going on. Do you remember
Okay.
that?
No.
Okay, yeah, there was. He took out the frunk, and there was 20, 30 feet of hoses for
Oh, I do
cooling.
remember. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Miles, it seemed like.
yeah, yeah. It was like the small intestines of a baby baboon.
Well, I do have some good news on Ford. That was some good news on Ford. Do you know that 65% of the Ford dealers have agreed to Ford's tough EV selling terms?
Yes, that is good news, but there's also the other 35%, which maybe we'll talk to in a minute. Part of this tough terms was that no haggle EV pricing has to be implemented. So if Ford says this is the cost of the vehicle, that's the cost of the vehicle. But it makes me wonder if the dealerships can still go, oh, well, we tinted your windows and we etched your glass and we put in a security system. and we gave you the rust protection program thing, and then
Hmm.
we tacked on the desert protection program and put $5,000 worth of ads on it because that's aftermarket stuff.
I'm sure they would still be allowed to do that. It would be
Then
just a different layer of BS to have to address.
then who gives a shit? This is meaningless. Then this is meaningless
Well, it
because that
does include, they also have to add DC fast chargers,
okay.
which is crazy because I don't think they have adequate space to provide them. But the good news is 65%. That's basically everybody on board, right?
Well, not quite, because the ones who are not on board have filed a complaint against Ford and probably will end up in a lawsuit saying, we don't want to do this and you can't make us.
What a shocker!
That is not a shocker at all, but I understand the sarcasm. Uh, I would have liked to have seen Ford just branch out and just not go to these dealers to for this dealership part of this. And we don't have an article on this, and I don't know why. But did you see the article with Corvette?
That they plan to spin out the entire electric Corvette division. Is that right?
Yes. So it'll be a new brand like Saturn or Saturn
Mm-hmm.
and or Geo. Geo would be another one
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
GM had. And I think if they do that, they don't have any obligation to the dealers to sell them.
Yeah, that's a whole new franchise.
It's a whole new franchise, and now they can go direct to consumer. And at first, I threw up in my mouth a little bit because they're talking about a four-door Corvette and a SUV Corvette. But now that I think about it, Corvette C9 and it's electric, and it's still going to be a sports car, and then they can do and then they can do the to consumer, wipe out these dealerships. Uh, they'll no longer have Corvettes to sell. That that'll hurt them a bit, not horribly, uh, but they could end up doing that with the other EVs also
Sure.
somehow. So I wish Ford would really step up and just go, well, we really don't need you guys. We'll offer you a deal where you could maintain these products that we're going to sell and you can deliver them, but you can't add. I want to see something that says they can't add to the price of the vehicles because I know you heard me complain about this last week, but when I bought the Mach-E, they added in the crap that I didn't order to the tune of
Yeah.
$1,200.
Very frustrating. Yeah. I did get a comment from Digital Blade Canada saying, I don't really trust Torque News, though. It's that one guy that's more often wrong than right. And yeah, that website is bad enough that I generally avoid it. But because it was just a retelling of the video from Hoovie's Garage, I was comfortable with that it was sufficiently accurate. I guess we could have just linked straight to that, and probably should have now that I think about it. But yeah, he loves to take content without asking, and just
No.
yeah, and stretch it to 10 minutes and 2 seconds every time, which is not great.
Well, everybody's good at something. Remember that.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Have
So,
we talked?
Ford's new EV dealer network with
Yes.
65% is going to result in one of the largest DC fast charging networks in the U.S. If you look at it the right way,
And only the right way, which is
only count how many station
addresses,
addresses, not charging outlets,
right? Not stalls.
not stalls, but only specific addresses. Why
Yeah.
is it? Why is this an article?
Well, and who wants to go park at the dealership? That's where I want to go for lunch, is the middle of Auto Row.
Yeah. So in order to count, you have to have two chargers. So
Oh,
if all of these dealers get two chargers, then it will be the largest. If half of them only get one, then Ford will not have the large. This is just Ford's going to go out there and start puffing their chest, saying we've got the largest charging network in the United States because they have.
It'll only matter when it comes down to talk to someone who has experienced it themselves.
So I hope that's not the way this is going because this is not that big of a deal. Um, Let's good. 1,659 of the 1920 dealers on board with the Model E will be certified elite. So that will give them the largest charging network, but not really because it's actually more than Tesla, but not for stalls.
And why call it certified elite? I mean, you're already starting by calling them the best ever. What do you call them after that when they get a third one? Don't worry, they won't.
Super.
Surely there's got to be some good news for Ford this week.
Well, we did have that one thing about the 150,000, but we also have this. DHL is buying 2,000 electric Ford eTransits as delivery vans.
Great.
You know what?
And I like that they plug in from the front.
It's just weird, though. It just looks really awkward to me. Not awkward putting it in. It just looks just like they might as well put it in the back, like in the butthole or something.
Yeah. But this is practical and avoids having to back into spots or...
It really is practical that way, and probably better off. But from my understanding, DHL is really not in the United States anymore, so these vans are all going overseas somewhere.
Oh, that's a UK number plate according to Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. Good catch.
Yeah, at the bottom, it says they've taken delivery of some of them: Bulgaria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Germany, Luxembourg, Mexico, Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. DHL left the United States probably 10 years ago, if not more.
Well, do you know DHL is the only overnight service you can use to North Korea?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they operate in North Korea.
Do they?
Yeah, they're the only international carrier that does.
Okay, well, if we have any viewers from North Korea online, let us know, and we're going to send you something for DHL.
Yeah. Laws permitting, of course.
Oh, no, we're going to send them food.
Oh, humanitarian aid.
Yes. All right,
Nice.
let's get on to something that can deliver humanitarian aid. I'm going to let you roll with this one.
Tesla Semi, a deep dive. The EV Universe put out this pretty fantastic recap, and it's quite lengthy. It starts with some of the quotes we saw, like from Bill Gates, who said it would never happen, and from like Daimler Trucks, who said it would never happen. If this has happened, something has passed us by. So you can't get 500 miles of range out of a semi, not a fully loaded one. Well, it turns out you can. And this article is quite long. There will be a link to it in the description. And you can watch the semi event if you'd like. But the big deal is range is over 500 when fully loaded. Acceleration is, when fully loaded, 20 seconds, which may not sound like much, but it is. And it can maintain highway speeds, even up steep grades. They show that in a video at one point. And the charging speed. You can get 0 to 70 in 30 minutes. Bear's got a caveat on that. What is it?
Has to be at a mega charger.
Has to be at a mega charger.
Yes. Now, you can charge it at a Tesla supercharger, but you're going to get the speeds that everyone else gets, 250 or 350, which is great. But that does bring it down to the same levels that, well, actually it's going to take you a lot more because that battery is about 9 times the size of a Model S battery.
Yeah.
And I would have to do math to figure out how much bigger it is than a Model Y. It could be more.
But you would stay at the peak of the charging curve for a lot longer.
Yes.
But, yeah, three motors. They're 3 plaid motors. 1,000-volt architecture, which is something we did not see coming. And the price, well, all I heard about that was it's Nunya.
None your business?
That's correct. Correct. The 2 questions we most wanted answered at the event were the weight and the price. We did not get answers to either one.
Yes, and that's going to be the big thing on this. Obviously, when they first announced it, the price was 150,000 for the 300-mile version and 180,000 for the 500-mile version. Um, it's just there's no way that it can remain that price. A plaid costs what right now? 139? Is that right?
It might be as low as 130, but it's an outrageous. See, so yeah, for an extra, yeah, you can't sell it for 180, and if you could, you wouldn't.
You would for a first couple guys to make a big, nice semi delivery event. But right now, at this rate, they're not making a profit on those trucks. They're just getting them out there and getting the visibility and checking off a checkbox that says we delivered the Tesla Semi in 2022. So,
So
but I I
they
still think
are
it's going to be a
already
great truck.
making they are already making about one a day, and that's been the case for a couple months now, according to my sources inside the factory. The ones who shared with me things that we later found out were true, like the plaid motor, the carbon overwrap plaid motor, that turned out to be true. The motor count and configuration turned out to be true. So, yeah, they're still assembling on stations the way they do at all the other companies that make semis, but they are tooling up to put it on an assembly line, which would allow them to move much more quickly and efficiently in terms of construction. So that's kind of nice. One thing we discussed earlier was, before we got on the channel, was it's smaller than a regular big rig. Right here above the charging part, you can see this animation that shows the profile compared to a regular diesel semi, and it's significantly shorter. And for that matter, you've got a little further down, quite a bit further down, an interesting chart showing a comparison. Oh, this feature we didn't talk about. It can lower the back wheels with its suspension, so you can hook up without cranking your trailer. Did you catch that?
Yeah, that is a nice feature. Um, I still would like to see how that would work in the real world, because while you can dump your suspension, is there a limit? Like, can you go, I just want to dump a little bit? Because I've had to hook up kingpins before, and they can be a pain in the butt when you're doing it by yourself, getting that right height level, going back and
Yeah.
forth. So I'm hoping that it's not just it says suspension dump. I don't want it to go all the way down. I want it to go, hey, let me
To
ease
the
this down.
correct height.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
correct height, and maybe a camera. I'm sure it's got a
Yeah.
camera that
Yeah.
will get you in the right spot.
That will be neat. Further down the page, boy, it is. Again, this article is quite in depth. There's a chart that shows some of the competition. And Bear and I talked about this before we got started. There are a lot of asterisks that need to be on this chart.
Yes.
So,
The
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the first one is these charging times. So, yeah, 70% in 30 minutes. That's on a megawatt charger, which are between rare and non existent.
Right.
I assume that you will have them at your depot. If you don't have one, you can still charge at any supercharger, theoretically. If you can reach, which is another question. These other guys, again, they're all going to be limited by how many kilowatts they can get in. And again, they're all probably going to be charged at their destinations. But then you get down to like Kenworth and Peterbilt, they can only take 120 kilowatts. That's
Yeah,
not competitive.
that is not. That is Chevy Bolt levels. Well, actually, it's not. It's not that low, but that is the bottom of the barrel. That is not going to be fast enough because these battery packs, they for the Kenworth and the Peterbilt, they are 4 times the size of a Model S, and you're not going to be charging that very quickly at all at 120 kilowatts.
No, 3.5 hours to get you 150 miles of range. That's I I hope they see this and it's a wake up call for them. But yeah, and the big thing is we don't really know the weight on kind of any of these, and I assume that's closely guarded because they're all still iterating in ways that should improve it drastically. But until it does, it's kind of embarrassing.
We really
And for
would
that
like
matter,
more
yeah,
information.
yeah, and for that matter, we don't have prices on all of them. So this is an awfully big deal. Also, yeah, this $40,000 credit, which kicks in January, means that 180,000 was never going to happen. At the very best, I would expect 220, meaning the 180 plus the 40. But even that, I think, is very, very optimistic.
Look at the components of a Model S Plaid.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the
Oh yeah.
battery pack, which is probably the most expensive piece, and you've got three motors, which I don't think those are all that expensive. I think they cost, but I don't think that they are a large amount. So those two items of the four total are going into the Tesla Semi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you're multiplying that battery, that Plaid battery, by 10.
Yeah.
Well, there's 10, almost 10 Plaid batteries. Let's call it 9. I don't want to be accused of exaggerating. The estimate is 914 kilowatts. So there's 9 Plaid batteries in there.
Well, let me do this. You could say there's about 13 Model Y batteries because that's a more accurate one because it uses the 2170s.
Okay.
So 13 Model Y batteries. That's a lot, dude.
Yeah.
That's even if we're saying the battery pack's only 10 grand, that's $130,000 worth of battery.
In,
And yeah,
the,
and yeah, you could say, well, we made the rest of the truck much cheaper. Yeah, but Jesus,
I don't know. The truck looks nice.
it looks great.
Yeah, it's got two 17-inch screens on it, and they're touch screens. They've created some software for running a lot of the controls that a truck is very specific to, like things related to suspension dump, which we talked about. I saw a Kingpin release on there. Of course, they've got all their navigation and those other things, which have already really been developed already.
They've got heavy suspension. They've got expensive wheels. They've got a full steel frame. There's a lot of parts there where there is no way to save money. It just costs what it costs.
Yes, I'm sure there could be something that they can shave out of there. Another point on that 1 megawatt charger. If Pepsi's saying, yeah, all right, we got a megawatt charger installed, yeah, because we need one.
Mm-hmm.
How much do you think that costs?
So forget the cost of the charger itself, just the cost of getting the permits and the electrician who can do it. Oh my gosh.
You've also got to you've also got to keep in mind some businesses have demand fees also. If they use a certain amount of electricity during certain times, they have to pay fees. There was an article that I found a couple weeks ago on this, and it is something that is very prohibitive for companies to go with using a lot of electricity because they can get demand fees that will cost them $200,000 a month just because they've hit that usage point. I have a 200 amp breaker for my house. I probably need a 300 because of all the EVs I have. So I'm like borderline, and I was told it's $10,000 to run the line from the street to the house. Plus, my service charge, instead of being like $36 a month, would then be $200 a month because I have a larger amperage coming in. I don't know what a megawatt charger requires, but it's got to be a lot higher than anything that a house requires.
Failtrains said most large companies have demand fees. 30% of our bill is demand charges. And I don't know what kind of business that is, but I believe that. I believe that. Now, you can get great deals on charging overnight, and maybe that's the plan that Pepsi / Frito-Lay has. But, yeah,
If you're forced to charge overnight, then I don't give a crap how fast the charger goes.
Right.
It doesn't matter at that point.
Yeah. Well, and even a couple hours is probably the time it takes to load a truck anyway, depending on. Well, I guess you'd probably have the pallets ready to go, but
I don't.
I,
Well,
yeah, I don't
yeah,
know.
you'll have to disconnect for that because I don't think you're going to have chargers
Oh,
in the
all the way
docks.
out in the docks. Yeah, it'd be too
Yeah.
far. So at any rate, my takeaway is that this is a pretty interesting new product. It's pretty compelling. The competition is on notice. I don't think anyone is quite yet quaking in their boots, though Kenworth slash Peterbilt dang well should be.
Didn't they file bankruptcy as soon as they saw the video?
They're owned by PACCAR, so no.
No. Okay.
No. Let's see. And then, yeah, I hope this just makes everyone step up their game a bit.
Oh, definitely. And I hope they have a solution for the charging. I nothing that I'm saying, even though I'm obviously a Nikola fan, that most of you guys know that, you should know that. A, this I'm not trying to beat down the semi at all, the Tesla semi. I think it's a great truck, but they've got to answer some of the unanswered questions. And so does Nikola. I mean, they all do.
Well,
And
and
they're
yeah. And if you look at before the Tesla came out, Nikola at 2.22 kilowatt hours per mile, that wasn't bad. A lot of that could be fixed with better aero. But they were still ahead, well ahead of Lion, whoever that is, well ahead of Kenworth and Peterbilt, which is embarrassing. So, yeah. And even BYD leading the pack with the very worst efficiency. It's
well,
crazy.
good for them. They got 125 miles of range. How are we doing on time? Look at that. We're going to
Yeah.
move on to our next article.
Uh
So
huh.
we should have just done a whole
Yeah, we
video
could
on
have, but
something.
my philosophy is, well, you didn't ask me what I thought of the presentation of the video.
Well, tell me, what did you think of it?
Haven't watched it, couldn't tell you.
All right.
But yeah, Tesla offering a $37.50 discount in the U.S. for people who buy new Model 3 and Ys from existing inventory and take delivery by year end. What's that about?
Well, they're trying to get people to not cancel their orders or delay their orders till the new year because that's when the tax incentive goes in. So by
Yeah.
offering them half now
Hmm.
and nothing later, they will get people that will jump on this because some people are waiting and they don't even realize this. They're going to wait till January 1st, but it's still not going to make a difference because they're not going to get this tax rebate.
Hmm.
A lot of people end up not paying taxes because you have to have this. It's still a non-refundable tax rebate. Or
I thought it
so,
was refundable. I thought it was point of sale, but
it will be in a couple of years, but the last I read, it is still non-refundable. So if you get that at the point of sale in 2024 when they start that, you may have to pay that back if you don't qualify for it.
that
So
would suck.
buyer beware.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Uh huh.
I was surprised. Last I read, which was recently, it said it was still non-refundable despite everything that went through, which means average Joe who's not paying $7,500 in taxes in a year is not going to get anything. So if you're on the fence, if you don't have like a crap load of taxes to pay, take this 3750. Take it.
So what do you think of Lucid? Maybe they should offer a discount.
Yeah, to their employees. Um, this whole thing that's going on right now. I'm starting to get slightly concerned. This Lucid's offered an $18,000 discount on the Lucid Air sedan if you take the order by the end of the year. The Air Grand Touring, the vehicle that they are offering employees, starts at $154,000. They have 14 vehicles shown on their site as inventory that you could take delivery of before the end of the year. Four of those are the Grand Touring Performance, which, if you guys know, that's the faster one. That's $179,000. So if you're a Lucid Air employee, you're only going to be able to purchase this car if you're in the executive uh, branch of Lucid. You're going to have to be making a decent amount of money. The guys working the line, they're unless they got money saved up, and I'm not knocking any of these guys, but I don't think they're their paycheck is enough to support having a car that costs this much. So I'm not sure. This is kind of weird because, a high-end engineer might be making enough money to buy a car like this, but the $18,000 is also not a discount off the price of the car. You get a $500 uh, stipend, $500 every pay period until you get the $18,000. So you're not even getting it off the price of the car.
How crazy is that nonsense? It's only if you continue to be employed. So now they have an $18,000 reason to fire you.
Yes, they do. And just to even tack on just more nonsense, if you take out a loan on this, you're going to be paying interest on that $18,000 as you get it back. You're also going to be paying taxes on that $18,000 of the sale of the vehicle, which at 9% which is probably where you're going to be around 9%. What is that? Another $1,800? Or no, it's less than that, but um, it's probably about $1,600 worth of sales tax on that $18,000. So, owie. I'm also a little nervous with the Lucid inventory because I haven't heard of anybody getting a touring performance delivered yet. I haven't heard any deliveries on that. That was just not something I've heard yet. And now there's four of them up on the inventory list. So that's a little odd. And I also don't understand these ones that they have in inventory. Why are they not uh, putting it out to the people who have ordered them? But on the flip side of that, maybe they're not doing that because they know there's people that just don't want to wait and they want to get it right away. But there is over 1,000 cars sitting at Lucid, and that is equivalent to $159 million worth of inventory is sitting in Casa Grande, Arizona, waiting to get delivered. So I'd like to see those deliveries start happening. But
Yeah.
I know they're going for that production goal, and they've fallen behind on the deliveries. But their production goal was 6 to 7,000, so that's what they're shooting for.
Pretty crazy, man. I'm a little concerned about them too. Also, I don't think, I was joking with Jeff the other day, you know what Lucid really needs to turn this ship around? Another variant of the Air. Yeah, that'll solve things.
That I've complained about that numerous times.
Yeah.
They need to stop with that and start getting these cars delivered and then get people excited for it.
Yeah.
It's working against them. There's like too much time focused on creating these different variants. The Sapphire, the Stealth, the I didn't understand during the Gravity release, the entire video was on the Lucid Air Pure, which had already been released, and it all came down to they got a new color for the Pure. That that's what it came down to. They didn't tell us anything new. My Pure was already ordered, so I didn't really learn much. Um, the presentation was, as always, very well put together. And then in the last minute, they gave us a glimpse of the Gravity. So,
Well, we've got a
uh,
few more stories and only a
yeah,
few more minutes, so
I got a
we
few
should.
more bitching to do though. But
I
yeah,
know.
yeah,
Did you say ditching? Drivers are increasingly ditching
yes,
Toyota and Honda gas cars in favor of EVs. Now, this should kind of be no news. If you scroll down, there's a chart that says electric vehicles consumers are buying, and here's the gas cars they're trading in. But a lot of these are just the most popular cars. The RAV4 is a big seller. The Honda Accord's a big seller. Tesla Model 3, Civic, Accord, Camry, RAV4, CRV. Those are like five of the most popular passenger vehicles. Shouldn't be a surprise. And you'll see the same names pop up over and over. Although the
RAV4.
Subaru Forester is kind of surprising, but the RAV4, it's a big seller.
Yeah,
It's a crossover SUV. Yeah, people are going to trade it in for a different crossover SUV. So not really surprising, but The thing that I see a lot is, the EV market share for Tesla's evaporating. And there isn't an EV market share, there's an auto market share, and it still has a lot of room to grow. And
Yeah.
you could say, well, yes, but Tesla's went from 90% down to 70%. Right, but they're still growing 50% year over year, while all the other guys are flat at best, with maybe one or two above water, and Tesla's still growing 50%. It is the one to beat so far.
Yeah, and when they were at 90%, going down to 60%, it's meaningless because they were the only ones in the room to begin with.
Right. Yep. Yep. And if they were still at 90%, I think that would be a concern for the EV market generally. It would mean that adoption is still tenuous at best. And it's
Right.
not. It's here. Do you know that Hyundai and Kia
You put them together.
achieved record November U.S. sales, led by rising Ioniq 5 and EV6 demand?
Yeah, this article made it seem like things were going crazy, that they were selling them like hotcakes. Apparently, they must have some sort of production problem because they are selling every one that they make. I know that because every time I try and buy like an EV6, they try and jack me around by adding on an extra $5,000 or $10,000. But apparently, Kia's EV6, they sold 641 in November.
Wow. That's not very many cars.
No,
Huh.
but there's still
641.
such a demand for them that the dealers are able to mark up the cars. So there seems to be a production issue. Now the Ionics are producing almost twice as much, but still that's nothing.
No. No. It's. I'm glad that the numbers are growing, but my gosh, when your production is for a month is a day's production for somebody else, it's not good.
No, no, not at all.
Do you know?
So
Yeah,
yeah, Motor Trend. Motor Trend, you think that they're just like all about cars with motors,
yeah.
like gas motors, but they put out an article which I thought was actually a pretty decent article. You're being lied to about electric cars, and this is almost like the mainstream media getting hit with the truth stick or something. Um, so everything that you're hearing flying around about why EVs are so bad, this article pretty much takes every single one of them and addresses them and debunks everything that's been said with facts,
Yeah, yeah.
not a not opinions or emotions, but facts.
Citations.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, but EVs start with a bigger carbon footprint. Yeah, it takes almost no time to keep. That's like your opinion, man. No, no, it's several studies over time. But what if you burn coal? Yeah, no, it's people reading this, watching this. I think know all this, but EVs are better anyhow you slice it.
Yeah,
Even if you use coal or diesel to power your grid, it's still a net win.
this is just a good article for debunking the annoying relatives at the holidays. So,
Yeah, and we'll put the link in the description. At least I will. I don't know what Bear's gonna do.
probably go fall asleep.
Do you know that GM battery plant workers are going to vote on union representation in the labor test for the EV industry?
So this is Mary Barra's way out of saying why we couldn't do it. Uh, the UAW getting in there and causing salaries to increase could have a serious detriment on GM's ability to make the battery packs at what they thought that they were going to. Uh, because it's possible that these people could end up with upwards of 50% salary increase if the UAW gets in there, which is quite the reason for them to vote the UAW in there. Um, Long term, short term, I'm not a union fan. I don't know if you are, Brian, um, but this could obviously cost GM a lot of money and could really have a problem down the road with.
So generally, I appreciate unions. The UAW is a bit of an exception. It's not about the pay. UAW famously gets terrible pay for their workers. It's about the inability to remove toxic employees. And that's a problem, man. That's what nummy-faced when they were trying to clean things up there is they would literally catch an employee not doing his job, and they would try to fire him, and the union would get him his job back. The cost of a battery, the labor cost, is very small. That's why Tesla makes batteries in expensive countries as well as cheap countries. It's still cheap because the labor is such a small percentage of the battery, and for that matter, the car. They went from Shanghai, one of the cheaper markets in which to employ people at the time, not as much now, to Berlin, one of the most expensive labor markets, and it still makes sense because the labor is such a small part.
And that is a very valid reason for not wanting a union in there. And when I just said that the cost of the labor was one thing, that is one thing. Another thing is, besides not being able to fire people when they absolutely deserve not only to be fired but maybe taken out and executed. We've seen some police unions protect people that should have been. But I also don't believe that everyone across the board should get the same raises. You lose the ability to have people that want to overachieve and excel in their work, because no matter what they do, the union's already worked out what their raise is. So it's one of those things. There's a lot of issues that people can come up with unions, and there's a lot of reasons people can come up for unions.
So we got two more to get through. How about this one from Cruise?
Okay. So this is a quick little video of a bunch of Cruise cars all tied in a knot. I'm in San Francisco and someone filming it. About 3 hours ago, I was actually leaving the Tesla body shop for my weekly visit, and I got stuck behind a Cruise that there was a car in the left turn lane, but he left his butt sticking out a little bit and was trying to go straight. The Cruise car is in front of me. The car's butt was sticking out maybe like 6 inches. He couldn't go around him. And
Wow.
I honked, and I only honk my horn like once every 6 months in Arizona. It's not like New York or San Francisco. So I gave him a beep. He's like, "What do you want me to do?" He could not turn the car to go around the person whose little butt was sticking out just a tiny bit. So that's what we're looking at here. It's just not working for them. And
It's a rat king.
With sound, they're all beeping at each other.
Oh, yeah, so they are.
Yeah, which is cute.
That's adorable. Yeah,
Speaking
some
of
ways to go.
adorable,
Yes.
Tennessee is going to they're considering tripling the fee for owning electric vehicles. That headline right there makes it sound horrible. But what they're talking about is replacing this money is supposed to go to use to fund the state's proposed transportation infrastructure bill, because EVs are not paying gas taxes. So how do you get money to help pay for the roads that EVs are also using? Well, you just put on a small fee of $300 instead of $100. I get it. I understand it.
I've seen some pretty egregious examples of this where states will charge vastly more, 700, 800, 1,000 and up. 300, quite reasonable, I think.
Yeah, I think that is reasonable. It helps contribute to the roads. One of the few reasons why taxes can make sense is to actually drive on the roads that we do. Just too bad they're always standing around not doing anything.
I've seen the way you drive.
Ooh, I've used more than the road.
Yes, but do you take it off-road like the e-Hummer? Because that can withstand anything except a third minute of off-road.
Yeah, a third of a minute.
The first 2 minutes went great. Just like this show.
No.
No? Well,
We did it.
Yeah.
We just stuffed 15 pounds of stuffing into a 10-pound turkey.
As is tradition, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yay,
so
us.
Yay us. Subscribe if you haven't. I mean, if you're watching this, you have. Like if you haven't. If you're watching this, you haven't. All that good stuff. Yeah. So,
All right. Well, I want to thank all of my Patreons, the ones that are better than yours, except for the ones I thought of Patreons that might be better than mine and yours. They're the ones that are both of ours.
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it multiplies.
Yes. But I do want to thank all my patrons for supporting the channel because YouTube doesn't pay Jack Diddley.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't want Jack Diddley showing up my door saying, "Here, I'm your YouTube payment," either. So,
Yeah. 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 Bear's like, I don't know you nothing. He's like, time to learn about your father's debts. All right.
not again.
Not again. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bear. I appreciate your time. And I will see you on this same bat time and channel next week.
Yes, thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate you all.